Last week, Wednesday, I think it was, I decided I would be adventurous and trip on acid. I know that sounds like a very odd statement to make, but it's not my first time. It's not my first time. I'm
We're
like a seasoned
professional.
vet. Yeah, right. At this point, I am.
You know how to say on the
And
bottom, we are trained professionals. Do not try this at home. You're the
yes,
professional.
I'm the professional. And honestly, don't try it at home unless you do your research and you're ready. Let's throw that out there before people start popping pills and stuff. Like, no, don't do that. So yeah, acid. I did acid with two of my frat brothers, and it was great. It was a really great experience. For those of you who don't know what acid is, it's pretty much this chemical, and they put it on a piece of paper, and it's measured in what is it?
Grams?
Mics.
I don't know.
Micrograms, yeah, I just call it mics. Or MU, in the fancy science terms. And pretty much you put the tab either on your tongue or under your tongue, and you just let the chemical diffuse into your bloodstream, and then maybe give it an hour. You'll start getting like some visuals and stuff, things like that. And after that, it'll probably last for maybe 2-3 hours. The rest of the time, keep in mind this lasts anywhere from 8 to 12 hours when you use it, which is a long time. You only have a high for 2 or 3 hours tops. The rest of it is all just like a headspace.
You say 2 to 3 hours like it's nothing.
I say that like it's nothing, but when you're actually doing it, it feels like forever.
Yeah.
Like time does not. Well, I'll get into that later because that'll probably be something I bring up. But yeah, no, it's nothing crazy. It's nothing crazy.
I heard like shrooms is like taking 20 times acid.
So I've done shrooms too. I've done shrooms 3 times, and it's definitely way more intense. So they're very similar in what they do, but acid, you have more control. Like you're at the steering wheel, you can turn the wheel and drive where you want to go for the most part. Shrooms is kind of like you're in a Tesla and it's driving itself and you're just there for the ride. So good luck to you. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's crazy stuff. But yeah, so visuals. You get visuals for 2 to 3 hours. When you're actually on acid, time does not exist. It doesn't. I know that sounds very weird, but time does not feel like a real thing. I would sit there for maybe 5 minutes. 5 minutes would feel like an hour. And you're there for 8 to 12 hours. So that's a long time already as it is. So having that feeling of like 1 hour really being like 5 minutes, it's crazy. Like the time does not seem to end. But yeah, I did it with my friends. And before that, I went to a crystal shop. I don't know if you know about crystals and like all that stuff.
So just for our viewers, I've never done these things.
Yes, let's clarify.
I haven't done any acid or shrooms or anything like that, or LSD or any things, but I'm curious to experiences. I know, like, I've heard, like, there's this person on the internet called Joey Diaz, and he has these really descriptive things of how he mentions, like you said, with the time, that you take it and it feels like an hour and it's only been like a minute and you're like super paranoid, like everything's just like moving. And
yes, that is something you definitely need to get used to if you were to do it. Like anybody who's done acid before knows that the visuals get kind of crazy, and they typically start off with first like a kind of like a stomach cramp. And it's not even really a cramp. It's more just your body's aware of your actual digestion. So you feel everything down there. And it's you get used to it. You get used to it. It doesn't hurt. It's just something that you have to be aware of. You kind of lose track of your breathing sometimes. So like I could go a minute and a half, which I actually did. I timed it. I timed myself holding my breath to see how long I could last before I decided to take a breath. A minute and a half was the time. Definitely wouldn't be able to do that like this, completely sober. No. I definitely like pushed the limit there. But the room typically moves around you, and a lot of people describe it as like your environment breathing with you. So let's say for my room, for example, if I were to do it right now, the walls would definitely be moving with me. The floor would be wavy. The
Like
ceiling
an
would be moving.
ocean.
Like, yes, yes, perfect example. The ocean, exactly that. And that's just barely scratching the surface.
Mhm.
Like that's very minimal stuff with acid. So for me, that trip, I had gone to a crystal shop because I'm really big on like spirituality, and that's why I've been doing acid as much as I have been. One, because I used to be super depressed, and I did, my research and saw that they used to use acid for people with depression because it literally lights up your whole brain. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens. And I did the first time. And I can promise you, the little depressed boy that I used to be compared to now, two very different people. Like you would not be able to tell the difference between them. And so with this, like I went to a crystal shop and I decided I was going to buy some crystals for my brothers as like a Christmas gift, an early Christmas gift. So I bought a couple of them. I don't know if you can see them, but
What a
they're
gift.
cute little crystals.
Wow. They look like
Um,
rocks.
they're literally rocks. No, they are. They
Wow.
are.
Where do you
So
find them? You make it into rocks, or is it?
no, it's like a naturally occurring like geode that they then just polish.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, they're really cool. And the reason I'm into them is because of acid. Like, so acid talk. When you're on acid, typically you'll realize that, and this is going to sound really weird, but like life is kind of like a simulation. And I know
Mhm.
you spoke about this with Emily in the last podcast, but life literally feels like a simulation. And a better way to think about it is this: everything in the world, right, is energy, right?
Yeah.
And we know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but just transfers from one state to another, right?
Mhm.
Cool. So everything therefore has some kind of vibrational frequency to it, right? Because energy is matter vibrating.
Yeah.
Cool. So the theory behind it is that we are like, I guess it would be like five-dimensional beings living in a three-dimensional body, if that makes any
You're like
sense.
floating.
Well, think of like astral projection, astral body, like, or okay, think about Avatar, Legend of Korra. I don't know if you're familiar with either of those,
Mhm.
but you know how like they enter the Avatar state, right? And they have like this out of body experience where they're connected to everything and they can access memories of like their former selves, right? Think about acid as being the gateway to opening up your mind to that. So, my friend Jose says it best. He pretty much says that you're playing a game. Life, life is a game, and when you take acid, you start to realize that the person up above, your higher power, is really yourself. It's just a higher state of consciousness, and acid makes you aware of that. So you're playing this game as this higher state of consciousness within the three dimensions that we live in, right? So I'm living my life out right now, but everything that can or has happened in my life will happen. So like the past, present, future is already laid out. I know this sounds really weird. It
No, no,
sounds
no, no.
crazy.
I'm on board right now because I agree with you that even like deja vu that I mentioned a few,
Yes. Yes.
uh, that's so weird. Is it like I dreamt of it happening already? So like to me,
Mhm.
it's like everything's already happened.
Right. Right. And that's because it has. Like literally anything that can happen will already happen. It's already been plotted out. So like deja vu and intuition, right? Um there are theories that say that like your higher state of consciousness, when you get that feeling of deja vu, you're remembering something from that higher state of consciousness because keep in
Mhm.
mind you've already lived this out. So you already know what's going to happen. So you get a flashback like, oh, wait, this is going to happen. And then it does. Your intuition is your higher state of consciousness guiding you and pretty much telling you like, hey, we made this decision last time. Maybe let's not make that same mistake again. Let's try a different path. Let's see if we can change an outcome. And that's why I say it's kind of like a simulation, because you can change the outcome, but it's all plotted, like it's weird. It's really weird. And it's so hard to explain it sober to other people who haven't done it. But I'm sure for those who have done it, if there are any listeners out there that have, you can kind of relate.
I
Yeah.
think the closest that you can go without doing it is being sleep deprived. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I
Yeah.
I have my best ideas when I don't sleep for like 2 or 3 nights straight, like no
Mhm.
sleep. My mind will go to places that it has never gone. My mind is spinning. I'm literally everywhere. And so that to me, that's what drugs feel like. And so I don't know what's going on, but everything's hitting me at 100 miles per hour.
Mhm.
Everything's like moving. I can hear every little sound,
Yeah.
and ideas are floating somehow in my mind that are so profound that if I was sleeping regularly, I wouldn't think of that because my mind
Yeah.
wouldn't diverge to that. So it's like
Mhm.
something opens when you do these things. It's so like I
Yeah.
know Joe Rogan, this guy talks
Love
and
him.
does like a lot of DMT. And
Mhm.
so he's like, your brain produces naturally some DMT. And so it's like you do it. And so to enhance the amount you already have. And so
Right.
have you done DMT or are you planning to ever do DMT? Like, what do you?
So I've never done DMT. I have looked into doing it, and I definitely do want to try it, but it's very hard to get your hands on. So that's the only reason why I haven't done it yet. But I definitely do plan on trying that. I do know, like, from what other people have said about it, it doesn't last very long, like in real time,
Yeah.
but when you're actually on it, it feels like a lifetime. And like even Mike Tyson, I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast the other day at my
Mhm.
barber shop, and Mike Tyson did DMT,
Oh, he does. He
and
eats shrooms. Like he eats handfuls of
yeah,
shrooms,
literally,
and he
and
doesn't.
he had an ego death, a literal ego death, where he realized like his whole career of fighting was just him running away from his insecurities and things that his inner demons pretty much. And he literally cried like a child. He was crying. And I was like, whoa, like that's really powerful.
Mhm.
Like to experience something like that. And that's what most people who do psychedelics are like shooting for, really. The ego death, because the ego literally keeps you grounded to this dimension,
It shields
if that
all
makes
of
any
your
sense.
pains from everyone else,
Yes.
and so you have
Yes.
that persona in you of, "I'm this bad
Hmm.
MFer," and so that's me, but on the inside, I'm soft as the f so
Right,
soft,
like
right?
you're not that.
Yeah,
Um,
and
yeah,
that comes
no,
out when
it does.
you're vulnerable at that stage. It's like being
Hmm.
drunk. You can ask anyone anything, and they'll just tell you, and then in this case, it's
Yeah.
just coming out.
Hmm. Yeah, literally. And
Wow.
that's what psychedelics do. Like they enter a part of your subconscious mind and they draw out the most vulnerable thoughts that you have,
Because that's what
and
you
they bring
think
it to the
about.
surface. Right, right, because it's literally all in your head. Like
Yeah.
it's you, it's a part of yourself. So it's gonna make sure that it drags it to the surface and you have to deal with it.
Mhm.
That's what it's really meant for. So like if I'm ever going through some kind of issue or some situation where I feel very lost or like I just feel depressed or whatever the case may be, right? If I feel like I can't solve and deal with it sober, I would try and drop acid and see how that works, because 9 times out of 10, I can promise you I have gone through my life's most rough ups and downs with acid, and I've always come out better every time.
Yeah. And of course, listeners, like I wouldn't recommend you do acid. I'd probably
Right,
ask your
right.
doctor if it's
Ask your
something that would
doctor,
be
check in
good
with a
for
physician.
you. If you do plan on doing it, I guess take very little because we don't want something to happen to you.
Right,
Um,
right.
just
Do
use
your research.
precaution, right? So,
You know.
like Isaiah has great experiences with it. Sometimes it won't work out the same way, and so
Right,
we want you to be as safe as possible. So, like, have
of
you ever had like a
course.
bad trip?
Yes, of course. I've tripped on acid a total of 13 times. As of last Wednesday, 13 times.
Wait,
Shrooms 3
since last
times.
Wednesday, you've done
No,
it
no, no,
3
no, no.
times?
Okay, no.
Oh, okay,
No,
bro.
no, no. I'm saying since I started, I've done it
Yeah.
13. That's crazy.
You're
That
like,
I
"Mike
would not be
Tyson
here.
who?"
Right, like I gotta be nah. Ever since I started. So I started when I first started college. Yeah, my first semester was when I first tried it. Since then till now, it's been 13 times with the 3 times of shrooms thrown in there too. But there have definitely been times where I'll get a bad trip. And here's the thing with that. So like a lot of people will say like, "Oh my god, like you're going to have a bad trip." The only time that ever really happens is if you allow yourself to have that mindset of, "Oh, I'm going to have a bad trip." You create your own reality. So if you say you're going to have a bad trip, not you're going to have a bad trip. Let's hands down, you're going to have a bad trip no matter what.
Oh, yeah, especially with
Um
your surrounding, you're
oh
like,
yeah,
"Did that
that
window
plays a
did that
big part
blind
too.
just open? Did that door just
Mhm.
open?
Mhm.
Did I just hear something?" It's
Yeah,
yourself
you get
just
paranoid.
right?
You get very paranoid. Like I've done it indoors, I've done it at my house, I've done it in the woods, I've done it like walking around town. Like I've literally done it in most places. And it literally is a mixture of your surroundings and the mentality that you have going into it. So as long as I go into it with the mentality of, well, I'm going to learn something about myself and I'm going to grow from this, I will. If I go into it thinking, "Oh my god, this is going to be horrible," it's going to be bad because I just put that out there into the universe, and now that same energy is going to come right back. You know, it's like karma. The energy you put out comes right back to you. So if I'm putting out that negativity, it's going to come right back.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I just like to go into it, nice and easy. Like, yeah, this is going to be good. Granted, you can do that, and halfway through your trip, you might get like paranoid and you might start having a bad trip, which happened to me this last one. I didn't get paranoid, but I saw some visuals that were very intense to say the least. And I got a little scared. And
Could
that
you
was probably one of
describe
the
it?
first times. Yeah,
If you
sure. I could definitely describe it. So I don't know if you've ever seen a Bible accurate angel, like a picture of it. Well, check it out later. For those of you listening, if you haven't seen it either, by all means, look it up. I was laying on the floor just meditating, right? Because I like to meditate and just reflect. And I was holding some crystals. And I told you I had gone to the store before we started tripping and I bought some crystals. And I bought this crystal called selenite, which is this. And the description of it was that it was supposed to bring you closer to the angelic realm, right? And I didn't really think much of it. I was a little skeptical. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to play around with it. Let's see what happens. And I sat there meditating. And it's so hard to describe, but at first it started out with just colors of red, gold, and black. And then the longer I sat there meditating with it, the clearer the picture became. It was almost like there was like a lens over it that was just making it focus.
mm,
And it was this big like spherical object. It was like a ball in the middle, and then there was like a bunch of rings just going around it, just like moving all around it. And it, I looked it up after the fact, and it was a Bible accurate angel or like a representation of that. But it was almost demonic in a way, which was kind of crazy to me because like how can something that's supposed to be a Bible accurate angel, something that's associated with heaven, be demonic? Um, and then I also got like a visual of something coming out of the bathroom, and I was like, okay, let me put this down now. And I was a little scared. I was like, all right. But that was probably like the craziest visual that I got because it was so accurate. And then after that, it wasn't even just like it was my brain coming up with it. We started watching videos about like, acid, and I don't know if you've heard of like the Anunnaki. If you have not, okay. It's like an ancient civilization of people that pretty much I can't really even describe that. It's kind of so it's like space talk. They say that they were an ancient race of people that came down and helped humanity throughout its course. So like with the pyramids, they have descriptions of the Anunnaki. The Mayans had descriptions of the Anunnaki. You have the Incas too with the same descriptions, same figures, and this is like worldwide. So it's not just a sheer coincidence. Like multiple groups of different people have the same description of this group of people, you know. But yeah, so I kind of lost myself on that little rant. I'm not gonna lie. Anunnaki.
Yeah, you're just mentioning how like it. Oh shit!
That's my cousin.
That
He's here.
scared me. I'm like, cause I looked
Talk
up
about
for a
visuals.
second, and the door just looks like it just floated open, bro.
Yeah, no. My
Oh
cousin's here from
my
Japan.
god, oh that's
Yeah.
dope. But like, do you ever get scared when you do it? Like, is it legal first to have?
Let's not get into the legalities of that.
Like
let's
you showed it
let's
on
not.
camera. I just want to make sure it's legal.
Well, I'm not entirely sure if it's legal. Like if they catch you with it in the streets and like they stop and frisk you, sure you're gonna get in trouble. But to do, I don't think there's really a law out there saying no, don't do acid. They were using it for clinical trials and for helping people with PTSD and depression. So I would hope that a drug like that wouldn't be something that's like off limits. But also keep in mind that this drug is I don't even like using the word drug for this because I feel like it's more of
Enhancer.
right, like it opens your mind to such a degree that you start to question the actual reality that you're living in and whether or not your reality is a construct or if it's, something that you control, which it is. And every trip that I've done has led me to that same belief that our reality that we are currently living in is a byproduct of something that I'm creating with my mind because of the higher dimensional being that we are, like again, it's like you're playing as an avatar. Like your higher consciousness is playing you as an avatar in a video game and they're playing the game of life, right? And they're just trying to see who can win or who can get to their state of higher consciousness faster, you know? And that's literally what every acid trip has taught me. Literally, every acid trip. This
It's
one especially.
it's like almost like when you're like you're sober,
Mhm.
you want to get to that state by yourself, but something's
Yeah.
blocking you, or you're
Mm,
always busy. There's something invading
okay.
you to get there, right? And so
That's
this just says there's no troubles in the world. We're gonna take you there. Let's see how long it takes you to get there.
mhm. Mhm.
And so you do these things, but like, what do your parents think? Like, do they know? Do they object?
So my parents, they know. They know. They don't know about how frequently it's done, but they know that I do it. I got caught with some pretty bad stuff, like the bad drugs that we should all stay away from. And after that, I came clean about like everything that I had done, and they weren't too happy. I'll say that. Like weed, they weren't happy about, which I never understood really because my brother is on medical like marijuana, so like there's kind of a duality there. Um, and then, there was some more hardcore stuff in there too that I myself am like ashamed that I ever even decided to do. But acid was never one of them. Acid has never been one of those substances that I can say like, oh, I regret this. No, not in the slightest. Um, yeah, no, parents are always going to have their ideas of what we should and shouldn't do. but I also feel like I have to live my life for myself, and sometimes that means taking a risk and trying something new, even if it's for the sake of just trying it, you know? And you learn like, hey, this isn't something that sticks with me. I'm not going to touch this ever again. You don't do it. But acid has always been one of those things that I know for a fact is something that I can rely on to make myself a better person.
It's almost like the parents, like, they don't understand like what it was like because they didn't have it at their time, or they've been just taught like
Right.
like they went through a different way of like living, and so
They were just brought up different. Right.
yeah, and so to
Like,
them it's like horrible, and so like some parts of like these things are bad, but like if you use them correctly, they
right.
can
Right.
benefit you. So like,
For sure.
are you ever afraid that
Mm,
you know how to start it well, right? But then
mhm.
something happens during a trip that makes you do some more or do something else, and that may not end in a great situation. Do you ever get scared of that?
So are you talking like by more?
Overdose,
Do you mean
maybe?
over? Okay, okay. So that's the thing with acid and shrooms. It's not that kind of drug that's addicting. Um, you're never gonna have the urge to be like, oh, I want to do more acid while you're already tripping, because that's not how it works. You won't get that feeling at all. If anything, it's the exact opposite. You'll think, damn, like maybe I took a little too much and I'm tripping like out right now. And that's fine too. But you would never want to take more, ever. Because one dose is already enough to put you in that headspace of, okay, now I'm just going to reflect on myself and my life and see what I can change to make myself better. That's literally it. It's not like, oh, I need this high. No, because that's the thing with acid too. Like, it's not even about the high that makes it worth doing. It's the mental clarity that you get after that 2-3 hour grace period of the high that actually makes a difference, because that's the time that you're spending reflecting on the things that you've gone through, like, and all the past trauma that you've had. And I've definitely worked out a lot of my inner demons with it, for sure, for
So
sure.
you said you got the crystals from a shop.
Yeah,
So
it
like,
was a
I
little
feel
crystal
like
shop.
I feel like that would be, if someone can sell it, you could do it at your house then, right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so well, the crystals I don't even do just on acid. Like, I've always been into crystals just in general, because I do feel like, they give off a certain frequency and energy, and some crystals are meant for different things. Like, some I can use for positivity, some for like self love. Depends, right? So like rose quartz, for example, is a crystal that's meant for like self love, self worth. So I would hold that if I'm ever feeling like, okay, maybe I'm not worthy, maybe I don't love myself as much as I should. I would maybe meditate with that, and then make myself feel better. That's how I think of it as. So it's not really like, oh yeah, I only use crystals for acid or anything like that, but you can definitely do it at home. Like, it doesn't take acid to sit and meditate and reflect on things. You can always do it without it. Um, and if anything, that's what you typically do after a trip. Like, even after that trip was done, my friend and I that stayed over the night at the Airbnb, we spent the next morning meditating and just reflecting back on what had happened the night before. Because honestly, it was crazy. But either way, we would have still, just sat down and sorted out our thoughts and just centered ourselves again. And after doing a trip, you don't really get the sense or urgency to want to do it for a long time, months, sometimes a year. Like, I didn't do it for a while up until recently. Like, yeah.
A crazy thought just came in my mind. I was like, you know,
Mm.
if you ever want to come back on, have you on a little bit of acid. I just want to see what it looks like, bro.
Ah! Oh man. Oh
How do you
man.
get it
See,
started? Like, what do you do? Do you lick it, or how does
no,
that
no,
work?
no, no. It's literally just like a little tab of paper. You would just put it on your tongue.
Because you
Well,
said
I'd
it
put
looks
it
like a
under my
rock.
tongue.
So how do
Oh,
you?
no, 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 no. The crystals are the rocks. The acid is literally here. Don't worry. This isn't actual acid for anybody watching. But imagine it was a piece of paper. It literally looks, actually, that's pretty accurate. It looks just like this. And the chemical is on the tab. and you just put it under your tongue and you sit there, you let it marinate for maybe half an hour, 30 minutes until the paper dissolves. You can swallow the piece of paper after, and then you just sit back for the ride. That's it. That's all it takes.
So, would you be down to like do that one day down the line on camera?
I'm
See how it
not
looks?
opposed at all. Not opposed at all.
I feel like something that would teach you as well. Like you would know like what you like, how you behave when you like do
Yeah,
take it.
yeah.
It could be like an
And for the most part, I
experiment.
behave the same. Like, I definitely know after the many times of tripping that, you know, it's definitely a different headspace, but I still act the same way. It's just a different line of thought, if that makes any sense. But I would definitely be interested to do that.
That
Like,
I mean,
I'm more than willing. You might get some on site representations of like what I'm seeing. I can describe it for you guys. I don't know. Sounds pretty
I'll
cool.
live vicariously through you.
Through me, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
And
all
I
for it.
yeah, and I think our viewers would love that. And I think this has been a great conversation. I think we talked about a lot of key issues.
We
Talked about a
definitely
lot of
did.
cool things and went from singing to restaurants and COVID to acid and trips and you know,
A lot of
future's looking up.
variety.
Yeah. I mean, people are gonna have fun with this one. I know we're gonna see you again, right? Since we're gonna have that trip.
Hopefully,
And
of course, of course.
that'll be cool when you'll be like, I just saw so many colors and you'll be describing these things and I'll be like sitting here like, is he
Like, what?
okay?
What's happening?
Yeah.
What should I
But
be worried?
I know, but thank you so much for coming on, bro. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.